very good evening to our viewers. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Evening Review. My name is Tobie Aupindi. Tonight on the platform, we are joined by Dr. Tobie Aupindi. He is a Swapo Central Committee member and also a member of Parliament for the ruling party in the National Assembly. And he is here to help us discuss the legacy of Founding President Sam Nujoma, who passed away on Saturday night. We know that the nation continues to mourn him, and we will be bringing interviews like this in the coming days from those that worked closely with him in some capacities. Thank you, Doctor, for making time in a very difficult moment. I want you to perhaps share with me first how you are taking the fact that the founding president is no longer here.
Good afternoon, good evening to your viewers as well. Thanks for having me. It's always a great honor. The news was very, very, very shocking.
Yeah.
Sometimes you take life for granted and you think, founding president is always going to be here forever. But when it came, it truly hit me hard.
Yeah.
And if it hit me hard, I can only imagine how hard it even hit the widow, Meme Kovambo, the children, the Honorable Tony Nujoma and Saki, and the rest of the Nujoma families. So, and I can only imagine what the whole Namibian nation is going through. I can only imagine my comrades within the Swapo party.
Yeah.
It was a very profound and painful blow that hit me in the heart.
Yeah.
I could never really remember any day he wasn't around ever since I've been alive, literally.
Yeah.
Because coming, sharing the historical heritage with him. And I believe that in President Nujoma, I think everybody sees themselves.
Yeah.
There is a piece of every Namibian in President Nujoma. Of course, this is the icon, the most outstanding hero of the Namibian revolution ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll never have another. He's the president of presidents. He's the founder. He's the revolutionary. And therefore, that news coming to us at that moment truly was hard hitting.
I see that. I mean, when you see that each Namibian see themselves in one way or another in President Nujoma, maybe that is also best captured by the fact that even the tributes transcending political divide, people in the opposition declaring him as their personal hero. Of course, some of these people came from Swapo itself with other parties, but still, and the international reaction that we've gotten, it says a lot about him.
It is. And sometimes the people say, you don't know what you have until it's gone.
Yeah.
President Nujoma was a global iconic figure. The world is shaken. And when you see the outpouring of grief and bereavement being brought on to the Namibian nation by the international community, by even opposing, communities such as various leaders of our opposition, they do know and they realize that President Nujoma's image, President Nujoma's visions far outstrip any other formation. And he stood for a vision that was larger than life, that was larger than humanity itself. Because you are talking of a leader who was part of the revolutions, who not only was part of the revolution as others were part of the revolution. He is the founder of the last part of our revolution, which brought about freedom and independence. That no one can take away from him. He is the embodiment of our revolution when he took up arms, inspire a generation of younger people. He was only in his 20s when they created the the OPO, the OPC, and eventually transformed it into a formidable national institution, Swapo, to fight the aggressive apartheid regime of South Africa, which was governing over Namibia, and free the people from the yoke of colonial oppression and dehumanization. So he was the founder, he was the commander-in-chief, he was the leader of the revolution. He led from the front, and therefore his purpose, his mission, and his vision far outperform any other division that is between us as political actors. And therefore, because of that, I believe that he will transcend through time. And such a hero never truly die. That hero will continue to internally affect us and will continue to internally be with us, will continue to internally guide us throughout all our lives and the life that we pass on to our children and our grandchildren, and the perpetual survival and existence of the Republic of Namibia.
You best captured our headline today in Namibian Sun. We say that Sam Nujoma will never die, because we were not referring to the mortal part of him, but the immortal element that was Sam Nujoma, the legacy, the footprint that is indelible, that is leaving behind. But Doc, let's talk about the foundation years of our country. We are classified as one of the best democracies in the country today. Those of us who operate in this space called the media, we enjoy unfettered press freedom. How important do you think those formative years of our independence, what kind of impact do you think they had on what we have today? Because a president was set around those years. If we started on an autocratic note, that would have been the case still today.
It would have. And we thank God that we had a leader of President Nujoma's quality, his vision, his steadfastness, his decisiveness, a leader who really didn't dwell so much into analyzing a situation until he paralyzes the situation. He's a leader who believed in discussing an issue until and when you have discussed that issue, you must be decisive about it. And you must be able to defend your decision, and you must be able to move forward. He was a pragmatist. And because of that, he actually then led a team of cadres and the countrymen into a situation where we were sort of, because we came up with a Bill of Rights, and it became an experimentation. Our country became an experimentation that sets as a model for the rest of Africa. Because remember, when Namibia became independence, I can tell you that all the other countries generally in Africa were one-party state. They were led by the same president. Some of them are still led by the same president, even when President Nujoma came to the office. But President Nujoma led a team of cadres, and within both the Swapo Central Committee and the entire, when Swapo then took up its seats in the Constituent Assembly, that the best form for us is democracy. It's a democratic dispensation, an experimental state upon which faith is placed in the life of the ordinary Namibian people who are the sovereign, and that they will exercise, will be a country based on the rule of law and democracy for all. And the faith then is placed in the sovereign, who are the ordinary Namibian people, who shall exercise that power through the democratic dispensation and institution. And I think that, and then other freedoms that came with it, like the freedom of association, freedom of media, and all the others that are provided. So you had to have been very dynamic, to have been very, very strong and very visionary. One thing he was a very visionary president. with President Nujoma, you cannot second guess him at all.
Yeah, yeah.
He was very visionary, and that foundation is the foundation which we as Namibians are standing on today.
Yeah.
It's the foundation that has created that freedom, democracy, development, nationhood, sovereignty. It is that foundation which President Nujoma has created that we are standing today and that we are enjoying today, that you can write or say what you want to say, as long as you're not provoking anybody. You are not going to hear a knock on your door of people coming to seek retribution because the right to freedom of expression is enshrined in the Constitution. So President Nujoma was very, very dynamic, very visionary.
How do you think he managed the transition? Because evolving from a radical military man, leader, into one of the democratic leaders we have seen. Because people talk about, there were some autocratic tendencies in his personality, he was this, he was that. But when I look at where we came from and the foundation that was laid under his leadership for 15 years as president of the country, for our democracy to have thrived in the manner that it did, the rights of people that we have developed, polished so much to be where they are today, that tricky part of evolving from a military leader to becoming a statesman that he became, that must have been that's a huge achievement.
It is a very huge achievement, but it has to be said in perspective. You should remember that President Nujoma was the commander-in-chief of Plan. He was a military man. But Swapo in itself, in its organs, how we exercised the power within our organs was already through a democratic system of governance, just when we were already in exile. Because you would have the president of the party, you have the vice president, who were reporting to the Central Committee and its political bureau. And the Central Committee being the highest decision-making body between Congresses, which was electing leaders to the Central Committee. That's why you hear, for example, people referring to the famous Tanga Conference. It's because there was a conference. And at that conference, comrades were elected to positions to the Central Committee. So Swapo was already practicing democratic dispensation in exile. So he was not a autocratic leader. He was a very decisive leader. But one thing about President Nujoma, he never allowed people to walk all over him. He was very respectful. He was very inspiring, visionary, but no one could walk all over him. And he was very decisive. And therefore, Swapo in exile knew that because we were fighting for a just cause of freedom and independence, then freedom was just a matter of time. Was just a matter of time. Swapo, of course, exerted a lot of pressure on the colonial oppression through diplomatic dispensation, our diplomatic channels, through the frontline states, through the military channels when we were hitting the targets, through other means. And one of those strategy which President Nujoma took is that because we are on the side of the people, it's only a matter of time before the people prevail victorious. And therefore, we must prepare ourselves for one day being a government in Namibia. That's why one of the pillars of Swapo was education. President Nujoma was a big educationist, was a big motivator for the young people. And the education system started right from the bottom when you are in kindergarten. Some of us were in kindergarten, in exile. And then as you are getting older, above toddler age, you go to Kwanzaa to start school. And then you go on until people were sent to various schools in Europe, especially the Soviet Union, Cuba, and many other places that were giving Swapo help. And the Cameroon, West Africa was a very big supporter. The Nigerians, the Sierra Leoneans, and the Congo. I ended up in Congo myself, in Lodima, Congo. So Swapo, and then others were at other higher institutions of learning, like UNIN, for example. UNIN was actually a special project created to prepare cadres for governance. That's why you look at most of those cadres ended up coming into government. So Swapo was already a democratic party, but it was already preparing itself to govern, because they knew that the pressure that the apartheid, system was under was already, it's only a matter of time before people reign supreme. And therefore, Swapo had to prepare cadres. So when cadres came from exile, you've seen many of them. Some of them were medical doctors. Some of them were administrators. They were geologists. There were many other scientists and many other fields already prepared to govern. Even when they come from school, when they have finished their school, when we're in exile, they will still have to go back. Some of them will still have to go back to be in the camp, and they had to go back for training, and they have to be deployed to the front. So, it was literally just exchanging your uniform for the suit or the overall or whatever then the responsibilities that you were given at independence. But we had prepared so thoroughly on how state formation was going to look like. Even, for example, as they entered the Constituent Assembly. So we didn't walk into the Constituent Assembly just naked. We walked in already with the pillars, principal pillars, that we were going to negotiate on, that were approved by the Swapo structures and the president of Swapo, President Nujoma. So there was already some kind of discussion point and platform and document, like some kind of...
it was a proper government in waiting.
Yeah, it was a proper government in waiting.
We go for a small break, but before we go, I'll put a question to you. You answer it when we come back. When did you first met Sam Nujoma? We are back in a moment with Dr. Tobie Aupindi. Our conversation with Dr. Aupindi continues on the evening review. When did you first lay your eyes on Dr. Sam Nujoma?
1981.
1981?
1981. When I arrived in Kwanza, a refugee camp in Angola, and President Nujoma came there with other leaders to visit, really to see us, the children, and visit the camp and observe the situation, and really, in sense, impact a sense of motivation, a sense of purpose, a sense of responsibility.
Just so we are clear, you were born in exile yourself?
No, I went with my parents. I went with my parents as a child. And one thing I think that Swapo did very, very well was that whether the child was born in exile or you arrive with a child, all the children were sort of nationalized. They belong to the party. It's not your baby. So Swapo then brought up these children under a very well controlled, very well sort of developed system within of kindergarten, of keeping the children. Because remember, we were taken away from our parents, and where they had to go, and some had to go to the front. Like my parents were first at the front, my mother then went to school after that, and then others did the same. Some people went to school, some people went to the front. But your children, no matter how young they were then taken away. You would have been very lucky maybe to have kept your child. It didn't mean that it was because the aim was independence, and people had to go and take up those responsibilities. And when I met President Nujoma as a young pioneer, because that's what Swapo prepared his children for. They were pioneers, and they were future revolutionaries, and they were the future defenders of the Namibian revolution. And we say it in our famous salutation that today we are the pioneers, tomorrow the youth, then women and elder. And then it requires, in our answering, that it requires discipline, courage, loyalty, which were really the principle upon which we were brought up, to be ready to realize that while we were children, the sense of responsibility is that no one knew when the revolution was going to go for. No one knew when independence was coming. I mean, South Africa renegated in the 1978 during the resolution 435. And therefore, Swapo was already having programs to ensure that eventually their children will take up arms and lead into the future. And even if it took us 500 years more, we were ready to defend the Namibian revolution and take it to its logical conclusion. Yeah. And when I met President Nujoma, for me, there was just a sense of dynamism, a sense of aura around him, a person with so much love and purpose and respect, a person who loved unity of purpose. Yeah. One of the things that he always talked about was unity of purpose, was that as a sub-weapon and a precondition for nationhood and national development and party unity and party discipline and party moving forward. And I feel that, you know, meeting him was probably one of the highlights, definitely, of my life. And then, of course, since then, I've had the privilege of him just being in my life, because everywhere I went with other children, of course, in exile, he always came to visit. You know, he always came to visit to the camps. Even when we went to Ludima, he came to Ludima to visit, you know. So he actually came there a couple of times. And he was always emphasizing on education, education, education.
Yeah, know? Absolutely. One of the things that he's also credited with strongly is that ability that he had to nurture leaders. You became a corporate leader yourself at a very young age. Did you draw some of your lessons and maybe your inspiration from him?
I did. I actually did. I think that President Nujoma is the single most, other than my parents, President Nujoma is probably the single most figure and towering source of inspiration that I've always carried through my life as I was growing up. And he has always been. He actually even motivated me and convinced me to return to graduate school and pursue my PhD study. And he has always, even as I was as a corporate leader, he was always a source of inspiration. As a parliamentarian, he's always called me and given me tips and hints and always. But one thing that President Nujoma stood for, and I think this is why I say it, we should honor him by celebrating his life. It was the humility that lies at the center, to think only about the greater good of society. He only thought about the people of Namibia. And I think how we can repay him and celebrate his life is by ensuring that surely the natural resources that are within our country are managed and marshaled and exploited to the full and maximum benefit of all our people. That is the Nujoma dream always. Yeah. It is not acceptable for us to maintain an economic system that others are thriving, others are not thriving. Others are having proper housing, others' houses are being flooded, are being, taken away by floods. It is not acceptable that we have two forms of economic systems, one which others have access to markets, financial market, IT market, capital market, and other formal economies, value chain, supply chain. But then you have other people that don't have access to that, but they too have products that they want to sell. They too have needs, financial needs and other needs that they want to access those markets. And therefore, I think we cannot just overcompensate for the tax and transfer program and projects because we can. What we need to do is change the entire market in its entire institutional context, so that all our people have more access to more markets in more ways. And in so doing, then no one can then be left behind, and everyone will celebrate an independent Namibia. Because Nujoma's dream was always that dream, that everyone must enjoy a piece of Namibia, no matter who you are and no matter where you come from.
Absolutely. In conclusion, Doc, the very last question. You spoke about how young leaders like yourself were nurtured in the Swapo system. We know that A new government is being formed at the moment. If Tobie Aupindi is called upon to carry out any responsibilities, how would you react to that?
You see, I have been in Swapo structures all my life. There was never any, ever since, even when I was a child in kindergarten in the camps of Swapo, I was in the structure. I was in the sections, I was in the districts, I was in the branches, and then I went on to become, to serve in others. I went on to the Central Committee, the Political Bureau. I was re-elected to the Central Committee. So I have been a captain of industry. I'm a technocrat. I'm a trained PhD holder by Swapo, not by anyone else. Swapo created those opportunities for me. So Swapo has given me so much that I can only be grateful for. And I'm humbled, truly, to be in an unprecedented position. And if my opportunity to continue serving the people of Namibia, a sense of responsibility with a sense of unity, but a sense of humility, knowing the magnitude that I will only be doing that because it is in the greater good of our people, then I will always continue to serve when I'm called upon. And that for me is always the Nujoma legacy, is to continue redefining yourself, continue living, to continue learning, and to continue loving more as a human being. Because we need to love each other much more as human beings. Only then can we do work for the greater good of society that Nujoma stood for and that he talked about. And I believe that is what the perpetual Nujoma legacy will always carry as we go into the future.
Absolutely. Doc, thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That is Dr. Tobie Aupindi. He's a Swapo Central Committee member and also a member of Parliament in the National Assembly for the ruling party, sharing his memories of Founding President Sam Nujoma, who left us on Saturday night. Good evening.